Hey, Tanessa, thanks for coming on today.
Hey Rob, I'm excited to talk about all the stuff we're going to get into today. It's going to be good.
Not gonna lie, I'm a little nervous. I'm a little intimidated because you're such a seasoned pro at podcasts, and I'm still totally amateur hour because I don't think I've done. I think 22 is when you're legit, supposedly, because everybody, like only 1%, I think, gets to like 21. So I know you've done a ton more either on your own or on other people's shows. So thanks for schlepping it with me today.
No, no, no. It's going to be fun. It's going to be like one of those like nerd out about all the fun stuff talks. I love it.
I shot my shot. I've talked to you before. I want to get you on, and I said, okay, now I'm going to do it because it's the end of the year. You are all about focus, energy, helping entrepreneurs. Most of my listeners are all online sellers, so everybody's about energy and how do I get more motivation? How do I get the maximum out of my day? And now I got kids, and everything's limited. So I want to talk about some of that. I know you've got some really cool lifestyle you talk about openly about some of your plans and your trips and how you've engineered your lifestyle, which is sweet. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk a bit about how you help coach entrepreneurs and do all that. But first, I've known you for like, I had, before we got to the show, I had to look, I think it's like 4 or 5 years, kind of before you really went all in on this, when you're kind of pivoted and, COVID hit, I think, and that really kind of blew up your business. But can you just give us a quick, 30-second background on you, what you do, and your shtick?
Yeah, so I started my business in 2014, but I was a personal trainer like on floor. And it got to the point where it was like 33 clients I saw per week, each an hour session. And so it was a lot. And I just remember thinking over the time, like, yeah, exercise is helping everyone so much. And then I think as entrepreneurs, we have an itch and always an itch to what's next, what's next. And so naturally I was like, okay, well, what about food? And I brought that in my business, but what came into clarity was when I had the first baby and I was sitting there, like, I remember I had her in my lap and she was like sleeping and I'm over here trying to write a newsletter. And I was like, I can't think. I literally don't have a brain right now. I am so tired and so foggy. Ooh, I bet you some of my clients are experiencing this on a much like a lesser level, but it's to the point where it's impacting their thinking. So I decided to biohack my sleep on Instagram and show like, here's what I'm changing this week. Look what happened to my sleep data. And naturally people got so excited about that when I was like having this amazing sleep and I had a 4-month-old baby at the time and people were like, wait a second, how are you doing this? And I was like, this needs to be a part of it. And so that's really when I made the final pivot into kind of the consultancy practice I have now is where I work with entrepreneurs to help them with their clarity and their energy and their focus all through getting really good sleep, eating good food, moving and being able to tolerate stress.
Perfect. That's exactly what I want to talk about. All those things, because you know, I'm also getting older, and as a lot of people on this, I get all ages, right? So your body starts reacting different. I can't respond like I used to. I definitely, maybe get a little hungover. I just, the kids are draining. Today, I just want to talk about some strategies and ways that we can obviously manage our energy. Quick tips. I mean, you're an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. Most people listening here, we don't have enough time. Everybody's busy. I'm so tired of hearing that. I know, but there's not enough hours of the day. So how do we manage that and keep that energy up and, operating at our optimal level, right? Like, and
Mm.
actually stick to it. I mean, I'm not the kind of guy that getting up at 4 a.m. with my healing stones and doing meditation for daily affirmations. That's not my gig. I'm productive in the morning, but there's some strategies around that. Before I jumped on the call, I asked my
Mhm.
masterclass, I said, okay, what are some of the things that you want me to ask her? Because super timely. And it was exactly that. It's about focus and what are some meaningful changes and hacks and suggestions that we could follow and actually stick to it, right?
Yeah. Well, I think maybe it's beginning with understanding, I guess, what the struggle is. And I think it's this kind of lingering brain fog a lot of us have of just like feel really drained or we have trouble focusing. Like I have had clients who they accept it. I'm just always distracted. I always have trouble focusing. Or it's like, imagine if you were on the beach trying to run and you know how it's like you can run, but it's not as efficient. It's kind of, that's what I think brain fog is to thinking. It's like trying to think through sand. It's just like you can do it, but it's like not as efficient. And we're like, I wish my brain worked a little better. I wish my memory worked a little better. I wish I was more. And when we're like, well, what is causing brain fog? It's inflammation, right? And it can come in through a bunch of ways. It can be like my sleep is poor quality. I'm not getting enough of it. It can be what we're putting in our bodies, right? Is it processed? Is it refined oils? Like what is causing our body to freak out about this? And the other thing is what entrepreneurs are really good at stress. unchecked over time and being like, it's normal. Or just when I get to the end of this launch, this milestone, this quarter, it's all going to be great. And we don't ever check those things. And I think it comes down to really understanding like, hey, we've got inflammation going on. So I always start to look into one of those three places. And I don't know if you want to dive into one specifically first, but place I like to start with most people is sleep, because what you said, everyone's busy. We tell ourselves we're busy. We don't have time for anything. Well, sleep is free and you're doing it anyways. So let's make the sleep you are getting a bit better.
As we go along, because we're entrepreneurs, I want you to tell me cool gadgets and things that I need to buy, just like you told me to get my ring here and to track things or to help us. So, yeah, let's start with sleep. I love a good sleep.
Yeah, yeah. So my favorite gadget right off the bat is an Aura ring. And that's a ring that has capabilities similar to like a Fitbit or an Apple Watch, except it is much more accurate and it is designed to monitor rest and recovery. Whereas like the Fitbits and the Apple Watches, they're activity trackers. So if you're like, hey, my brain matters, my energy matters, my rest and my recovery and my stress matters, you get an Aura ring. And why I think these tools are so important is like you wouldn't run an ad, let's say an Amazon ad, without tracking your stats, right? You wouldn't just be like, here's $100 and like, oh, well, I hope that works. What are you doing? You're checking your data and you're using it to make decisions, right? Do I need to adjust my bid? Do I need to adjust? Like, what am I needing to adjust? And this is what I find that these trackers give us is data to make decisions off of. Because as entrepreneurs, return on investment matters. Like, I want to know that what I'm putting my time and my energy into when it comes to my health, I'm getting a result from it. So like, if I decide instead of 11 o'clock, I want to start going to bed at 10 o'clock. Not only do I feel the benefit of it, but am I getting more deep sleep? Am I getting more dream sleep? And you can't know that without a wearable tracker. It's like trying to go shopping with a credit card, but never having online banking access. Like, do you have any money left? Do you know? Are you all on credit now? So like, we really need to look at this data as like, why I think an Aura ring is perfect for an entrepreneur. We already know how to use data to make decisions. Just apply that same principle to your health. Aura rings are huge. I'm a huge fan.
Okay, so get a ring, start sleeping earlier. That's what you're telling me?
So this is a good conversation. This comes down to actually something called a chronotype. So we have a gene in our body and the length of it actually determines whether you are more of a morningness person, meaning like there are people that get out of bed at 5 a.m. full of energy. I am one of those. There are also people that stay up until midnight and get out of bed at 8, and that is their best rhythm. And it actually is not a preference thing. Like, I feel like there's a lot of marketing around the 5 a.m. club. It's the success club. Like, if you want to do anything with yourself, you better get up at 5 a.m. and start meditating, right? Only 10 to 15% of the population have this specific gene that allows them to get up. Because most people don't know this. We have a big wave of cortisol that comes into our body right as we're waking up. This is a good cortisol. Without this, we feel sleepy. So I want to feel alert and I want to feel focused. So I need to time my wake up with this pulse of cortisol. The problem is if your genes say you should be sleeping until 7 or 8 and you're trying to get up at 5, no wonder you don't feel alert. No wonder it feels like such a struggle and you end up back at 7 a.m. the next morning. So I think part of it is really leaning into your chronotype. And there's two ways you can figure that out. After you've had the Aura ring for about 3 months, it starts giving you something called a body clock. So based on your body's temperature and your movement and your activity levels and your sleep patterns, it actually says to you, you get the best quality sleep during this window. And I have found that for me, mine says 8:54, 4:54. That is my ideal sleep window. And it's funny, that's what I feel best at. I've also had clients that have had 12 to 8, and that's what they feel best at. And so I think it's really leaning into that. But if you don't have an Aura ring, there is a quiz you can take online. It's by a guy named Dr. Michael Bruce. It's called thepowerofwhenquiz.com. And on this quiz, it asks you a whole bunch of questions and it takes a guess based on a lot of your answers, what chronotype you're in. It's pretty accurate from my experience, having looked at Aura ring data from clients and then also the quiz data, but it'll give you an idea. It'll tell you like, hey, 11 to 7 is your rhythm, 12 to 8 is your rhythm, 9 to 5 is your rhythm. And then you can start experimenting with that and be like, hey, all right, I feel good on this rhythm. And that's how you decide more of when and how you should sleep instead of just, what the latest book on the internet said you should wake up at.
Okay. Now, unfortunately, I'm okay because I get up at 5:30 because in Costa Rica, it's dark at 6 p.m. all the time and it's bright at 6 a.m. And the weed guys are out and the machines are buzzing and everything's kicking off at 6. So you might as well get up anyhow. The monkeys are howling. But let's say my ideal time is that like 12 until 8. Well, guess what? The kids still got to go to school before that, and I got to make breakfast. I got to do a bunch of stuff. So how do I start? Like, what are some ways to? Great, I know my ideal, but that's not realistic in my life and my lifestyle.
Yeah, totally. I always liken this to your hair color. So my hair color is brown and pretend that's like your chronotype, me waking up at 5. I can dye my hair and change the color, just like you can change your chronotype. Although I still think you're going to be having a preference towards your natural chronotype. So let's say, for example, it is 12 to 8 and you're like, but I need to be up at 7. That's totally okay. These aren't like written in stone rules. These are just genetic leanings, per se. But so then that's when we start tapping into really cool things with the circadian rhythm, which is a fancy term for your body's clock, right? Like if you've ever noticed, you get tired at certain times of day and you're alert at certain times of day. Your heart rate is higher at certain times of day and lower at certain times of day. That's that internal body clock keeping you on track. Well, there are certain things that you can do to, I'm going to use quotes on this, trick your body clock to go to sleep earlier and wake up earlier, and to help move that cortisol pulse that we talked about to wake you up. And like just a couple examples off the top of our head are like, we're looking at light. So light is one of those things that helps with alertness. Now, the best thing that you can do is get outside on a cloudy day, think 10 minutes, on a sunny day, 5 minutes. But that actually is one of the things that will help wake you up and set your bedtime for the next night. So getting out in the morning and getting some natural light in your eyes is such a wonderful way to help really cue that internal body clock and help wake you up earlier. So if you're finding you need to get up at 6:30 and you're groggy, if you can get any light in your eyes, that's going to help. Outdoors is always best, even on a cloudy day. Another way you can manipulate that is with body temperature. So an increase in your body's core temperature stimulates alertness, right? And there's a couple ways you can do that. I like movement in the morning. So exercise, go for a walk, stretch, get your body moving, your body warmed up. That will increase alertness. On the contrast to that, cold shower will wake you up, because think about it like a thermostat. Cold water on the outside, your body's like, what is going on? We need to heat it up in here. It increases the core temperature on the inside and stimulates alertness. There's a lot of other benefits to cold showers, but like if you put those together, like you wake up, you go outside in the morning, you get some natural light in your eyes, you go for a quick walk, and then you jump in a cold shower, like that is a beautiful way to cue your natural body rhythm to start waking up and feeling alert at an earlier time.
Say the cold shower. That is like cold plunge is everywhere on Instagram, and I know that's the big thing now. Is it? And it is awesome. I've tried it. I'm not totally sure what I should be doing it or how often. I've just done it, and it seems awesome, and I feel good. Like,
Yeah.
what am I supposed to be doing on this whole trend then?
Yeah, so there's a couple times I would use it and a couple times I wouldn't use it. So I would use it definitely in the first part of the day in the morning, because it's meant to increase alertness. If we're doing cold showers in the evening or before bed, it's kind of the opposite of what we wanting to be do. We want to be, winding down at that point. So I like to do them in the morning. The other time I don't do them, at least in my recommendation, is within 4 hours after a strength training workout, because cold acts as an anti-inflammatory, right? So think about, you sprain your ankle, what do? You put some ice on it, right? It reduces inflammation. But in order for us to get benefits out of our strength workouts, we need inflammation to happen. So I like to keep my cold showers away from those type of workouts. Now, when it comes to actually like what to do, there are so many options. Like if you're lucky enough to live near a body of water, a jump in a lake, a jump in an ocean, all of those things are good. But for those of us that aren't in those locations, a cold shower works really well. Now, the guidelines for this are just do it as cold as you could tolerate. I honestly just start with like the last 30 seconds. Like have a nice hot shower, wash your hair, and then just do the last 30 seconds. And that's a really good place to start. What has been shown in research is that a cumulative amount, the optimal amount, is about 11 minutes of cumulative cold exposure per week. Now, does this mean you have to do that? No, but this is what is optimal. Anything beyond that doesn't have as much of a return of benefit. So the way I like to do this is, honestly, you get your 30 seconds in, and then what you'll start noticing is your body starts adapting, and it's awesome. And all of a sudden now you're not cold when you're outside. If you're in a cold climate like Vancouver, you're not, you're able to tolerate 40 seconds and then a minute. And there have been points when I've been really invested in this strategy where I can do my entire showers cold and it's not an issue. And cold water, I know in Canada, is different than cold water. I've got clients in Austin, Texas, and Florida, and they're like, our water doesn't even get cold here. But yeah, that's probably right. So
Same
then
here.
you're looking for like, right. So you're looking for maybe natural water sources. I've even had clients before that have been like, they've done once a week a cold bath, and they'll just sit in it, they'll dump the ice cubes in there, and that'll be the strategy, and they'll do it all in one shot for the week. But looking at kind of that as a strategy, the other thing that you can do is intermittent cold, hot. So you'll do like 20 seconds cold and then crank on the hot for 10 seconds, and then 20 seconds cold and then crank on the hot for 10 seconds. And the kind of nice thing about that is it affects blood flow in a way that really helps with alertness as well. So it does it only as cold as you can tolerate and as long as you can safely tolerate. And then you build your endurance in it from there.
Okay. Sleep, some cold. How else am I getting rid of? What's my next step to cure my brain fog and be 100% optimal here? Or 98, I guess. I'll take 98.
Yeah, right. I like to look at what's going on before bed. I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs I've talked to that are like, yeah, it's 3:30 a.m. on the dot, and I'm up and I'm going through my to-do list and what I said to that guy in that email, and I can't believe I put that up on social media. Like, our brains just like to review a lot of things. And what this comes down to is looking at, okay, those wake ups, if they're happening from something outside of us, like we have a dog that wakes us up or we have kids that wake us up, those are things that may be a little bit more out of our control. But then we start to look at what is in our control. And the things that are causing those wake ups at night are usually related to blood sugar or they're related to stress. So if we're talking about the blood sugar side of things, one of the easiest changes that you can make is making sure that from the time you go to sleep and your last meal, that there is at least a 2-hour gap. And I call that a good starting point. The reason for that is our body, when we eat some of the food, mostly the carbohydrates, and if you overeat on protein, it turns into sugar in the blood. Problem is our body can't metabolize it as well at night, so it stays higher for longer. And this higher blood sugar often causes overheating at night, waking up, overthinking, stress, like all that kind of stuff on our body, and we're up in the middle of the night. So what I like to do is leave ourselves a little bit of gap between dinner and sleep. I personally like between the 3 to 4 hour range, and I find that most people have the most success during that range. So right now, if you're snacking all the way up to bed, start with an hour. Just start moving it back 15 minutes at a time until you get that space. And then, so I like to look at that as part of that evening routine. And the other thing I like to look at is what we're doing with our brains. I find that as entrepreneurs, we're human doings all day. It's like checking on this, writing this email, get on this Zoom call, do this interview, blah, 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 blah. We have all of this stuff that we are doing, but we don't spend much time being. And when I say human being, I mean the absence of other people's brains. Like when you're listening to this podcast right now, this is my brain interacting with your brain. I'm giving you things to think about, thoughts to think about. You're having to process. Do I agree with her? I want to apply that. Would I have time for that? Like your brain is thinking about all the things that I'm saying. That's a lot of input. We don't have much time without input, without other people talking to us, without reading a personal development book. Like we are always on. And the way I like to think about it is when we are in doing mode, it's like being on the freeway. It's fast. When we want to go to sleep, it's like pulling the car into the driveway and parking in the garage. Those are different speeds. Yet for some reason, we think that we can put the garage at the end of the freeway and just go, 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 and then pray we don't like blast right through the wall of our garage. It just logically doesn't make sense, right? So then we start looking at, okay, what if we wanted to drive on the freeway, get off the off-ramp, get on the highway, get into the residential area, pull up in front of your house? Like you can see how the car is slowing down, right? So we want to do the same thing with our brain. And I really like pulling input out. And that can be in the form of other people's thoughts, books, podcasts, YouTube, screens, lights, social media, TV. All of that is input to our brain. So giving ourselves time, I'm going to call it offline, to allow our brain to slow down so we can slide into sleep instead of just like ram into the end of our day and be like, okay, time to go to bed.
No, I know. And I argue with my wife because she'll pick up her phone and like, just as we're going to bed. I'm an Amazon seller and I know nothing good happens at night from Amazon. I get all these
the return requests come in at that time.
No, that's when the potential account suspension, something like that. Like they like to send the bad info. So I've over the last 2 or 3 years, I just don't check it. Obviously I check my sales, but nothing good usually happens in my email after 6. And I just don't, because more often than not, something bad will happen. And then I'm going to be thinking about it all night. And there's nothing I can actually realistically do about it until the next morning. So I just don't deal with it in the morning. But I like you slow things down. I mean, for us, I come home, we eat, usually as a family, and then maybe watch a movie, hang out with the kids, do whatever. But yeah, try to stay off that. Easier said than done, right?
Well, here's what I thought about that made it a lot more like for me. It's imagine that we don't have any indoor electricity anymore and we're sitting in the dark and all we've got is candles and fire. When it used to get dark in the evening, what happens? The sun starts to drop in height in the sky then it gets dim, and then it goes red and orange. And that light change in color intensity used to cue our brain, hey, it's time to wind down. We should pump up the melatonin so that you're ready to fall asleep so you can have high quality sleep. You're ready to go tomorrow. But the problem is that sun sets in our sky right now, and we go grab our phones, and this is like daylight, blue and white light. And we're telling our brain it's the middle of the day. Stay awake. And so we wonder why sometimes we either have poor quality sleep or we have trouble falling asleep or our sleep isn't very good, but we've been cueing our brain that it's the middle of the day all the way up until bedtime. So one of the things that I like to do is I like to think about, okay, how can I make a sunset happen in my house? And what I do is we start by turning off overhead lights, because overhead lights tells our brain it's day because that's where the sun is. We actually have receptors in our brain that know where the height of the light is, and it corresponds to what time our brain thinks it is. So if we can turn off overhead lights and put on a table lamp, great thing to do. Then we're switching from bright lights to dim lights. And one of the things that I've done, it's one of those set it and forget it strategies. On my bedside table, on one side, it is a red light bulb, and the other side, a white light bulb. We turn the white one on in the morning and the red one on at night. And it's something you never have to think about again, but that red dim table lamp is telling my brain, this is like a sunset color. We should be winding down right now. And I spend our evening in that kind of amber hue light. So it's a really good one. I mean, there's other hacks you can do, like you can change the colors of your screens to be red. You can put on glasses with red lenses. Those things are all good. But I'm a huge fan of just like, okay, get that lamp on for the last hour before bed. It makes such a difference than when I'm like rushing around with all the overhead lights on.
This is awesome. This is really cool. Okay. I got my morning. Sorry, I got my
Yeah.
sleep. I got my morning. I got my wind down. What am I doing all in the middle of the day? Like how, obviously you're going to tell me don't drink alcohol, which I do. And we can talk about that and how to figure that out. But like nutrition and eating and snacking and trying to get the most, because we're always on the run and we just, something quick and easy versus like no one.
Mm.
I know there are people out there, but most people don't want to sit down and make a meal. Just don't
Yeah.
want to sit down to make a meal, right? I don't want to drag out all the stuff and bake it and
Mhm.
think about what to do and actually take all the
Mhm.
time to cook it and then do all the dishes. And meanwhile, you're like, well, that's an hour I just wasted when I could have just grabbed something somewhere, right?
Yeah, here's why I love this conversation, because I had my stint, my time where I tried TikTok. I'm back on Instagram now, but I tried TikTok and I post people's comments on there are so much more colorful than any other platform. But I posted a TikTok on there about how I only grocery shop once every 2 weeks and we only cook twice a week in our house. And people were just like, you're boring. And I'm like, I don't care because I have better things to use my brain with than thinking about what to eat every day, stressing about what to eat every day. Do I need to go out? Can I make something with what's in here? And so what I'm hearing when I'm hearing you say like, oh yeah, well, I don't want to do the cooking and most people don't sit down and eat a meal. I'm just hearing there's just a lack of planning. That's all it is, right? Because we sit down once a week and we pick out the recipes we're going to eat. And we're those type of people that will pick out 2 recipes and we'll eat the same 2 meals for 3 days. And yes, it's not variety. And some people like, well, fresh stuff every day. But for me, the way I've looked at it is I really prioritize. I'd much rather go and do a workout or spend some time with my kids or even watch an episode of Real Housewives than do another night cleaning dishes. And so that time to me is more valuable than my taste buds because I've decided food is for fuel most of the time. And so it doesn't have to be exciting. I can get my excitement in my life somewhere else. And like, yeah, I still enjoy the pizza and the ice cream and stuff like that. But the planning system has just given me so much time back. So when we're looking at kind of what to eat now and like, I think the best thing that I ever learned was understanding that blood sugar does not apply just to people with diabetes. Because that's what I thought for the longest time. I was like, I don't have a problem. I don't have blood sugar. It's like, we all have blood sugar. Our ability to keep our blood sugar smooth and stable is going to correlate to whether you have an afternoon energy crash or you feel like you get that fogginess that happens around 4 o'clock, or you get really snacky after dinner or between meals, or like you get that feeling of like, I'm so hungry an hour and a half later. These are all signs to me that our blood sugar is not stable. Right. And basically, I alluded to this earlier, but when we eat certain foods, particularly carbohydrates, and there's nothing wrong with carbohydrates. I think there's good carbohydrates and less good carbohydrates, but certain carbohydrates cause massive spikes in blood sugar. And with that goes energy goes up and energy goes down. So I want to keep it nice and stable. So I'm looking, number one thing I look at is for most of my meals, you look at here's a really good one. Did the foods on my plate come from the ground or have a mother? That's a whole food. Cheesies, not a whole food. Bread, not really a whole food. Potatoes, whole food, vegetables, whole food, right? You can start to see. So that's the first thing I start looking at, because whole foods, much less impact on your blood sugar than processed foods. So that's a simple way. And then one other thing I like to look at is there protein in it? Because the secret about protein and healthy fat are they help keep blood sugar stable, even when you eat the carbohydrates. And that's what allows you to have the carbohydrates, but without having the effect on your brain. Is I'm like, is there a source of protein? Because it mitigates the intensity of that blood sugar spike. When we can keep it stable, we keep energy stable.
Okay, so you sit down at what, like on Sunday, and you make a grocery order for the whole week, and you planned out kind of your meals. What do you do?
Yeah. So just to kind of give you an overview, we cook 2 recipes on Sundays and 2 recipes on Wednesdays. The Sundays last us lunch and dinner on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday lasts us Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and maybe we'll go out to eat on Saturday, right? So we're at 4 recipes in a week. So every other Tuesday, I sit down and I pick out 8 recipes over 2 weeks, and I write that down, and then I send my husband to the grocery store and
Okay,
outsource that. Yeah.
give me an example. Give me an example of like what you did this week. Give me a recipe.
Yeah, taco salad, huge favorite around here. So think of what you'd put in a taco. So take out the flour tortilla and put in rice, put in quinoa, right? Put in sweet potatoes, something like that. So that's a really good one we love. Another one that we eat a lot, we eat a lot of salmon with pesto with green beans and a side of rice. We eat a lot of that. Oh, what else do we like? We like the thing called salmon bowls. So we take canned salmon, and I love salmon because it has omega-3s, which is great for your brain. You take canned salmon, wild canned salmon, dump it in a bowl, put some avocado mayo in there, and a bunch of cucumbers with some sriracha. It's simple. It takes 5 minutes to make, and it's so good. So we just make enough for 3 days, and then we repeat. And this is how we're like, you find things that are simple. And the other thing I'll mention, I think what most people don't think about when they're planning, is when you do this type of bulk prep, don't choose 2 recipes that need 40 minutes in the oven. Those are those big Sunday 6-hour preps where you order those little meal containers off Amazon and it takes up a whole day of your life every week. That's what we think of when we think planning. But what about this? One goes in the Instant Pot, one goes on the stove. You cook them simultaneously. The whole thing is done in an hour, hour 15 at tops. Like, it doesn't have to take a long time. I think it's just really about thinking, what is making this take so long, and then start solving for that.
Okay. Supplements. I see all kinds of supplements. I see all these cool green drinks that aren't available to me here. I see all, every once in a while when I do watch TV and I see ads, I'm like, look at all this stuff out there. What are some, like, I'm not going overboard here, but just say someone who's, a little older here, works all the time. Maybe we get a little workout in here. What should we do, not do? What should we, I mean, I don't need to go with, I'm not training for Mr. Olympia here. I just go to the gym a little bit and try not to get too fat.
Yeah. So with supplements, when I find I have clients bring supplements into the conversation early on, I'm like, tell me why you want to take supplements. And usually
Marketing, I'm buying this brand.
Right. So when we take the marketing layer out of it, and then I'm like, okay, now why? And I literally just got off of a call an hour before this with a fellow who was like, okay, here's the supplements I'm taking. And why? Well, because they make me feel this, this, and this. I'm like, yeah, but you're on your phone right until bed. Like, if you're wanting to improve your sleep, taking a supplement for it still won't override what you actually need to do, which is take care of your brain, right? Taking a multivitamin is great, but it's not going to replace actually eating real food, right? Like, so I always start to look at, like, what I'm listening for is shortcut mentality, because shortcuts never work. I find that, like, we get all excited. We're like, oh, I got all these shortcuts. I'm going to do all these things. And those are the same people that find that they don't stick to anything long term because they were always looking for the fast route there instead of doing what is required. So that is my first red flag that I start to hear. Then if I'm like, okay, as long as you recognize that the changes, like the lifestyle changes need to go, it's like going to a doctor actually. And then instead of them asking like, oh, you're feeling really anxious. How are you sleeping? What's your food like? Do you exercise? Like, they just write you a prescription, right? Like, it's like not addressing the underlying causes, just a Band-Aid on top. So I always like to make sure that that is part of the supplement conversation. Now, there are supplements I do love. Specifically, I take magnesium biglycinate before bed, about an hour and a half before bed. It helps with relaxation. It helps calm. It helps with consolidated sleep. And when I first started experimenting with magnesium biglycinate on my Aura Ring, there is a graph that tells you when you roll over, how much movement you have during the night. When I started taking about 200 milligrams of the magnesium biglycinate about an hour before bed, most nights that graph is empty and it says no movement detected. And that is a very wonderful restorative night of sleep for me. And I can tell on my graph the night that I forgot to take it. But if magnesium biglycinate is an option, magnesium threonate is another option. When it comes to sleep as well, the other thing you can look at doing is tea, green tea. Not too close to bed if you're doing caffeinated version. Obviously, it's got something called L-theanine in it, which is wonderful for lowering heart rate and blood pressure, which are great for great sleep. Chamomile tea has apigenin in it, also has those very similar effects. And so if I were to take supplements, the first thing I would do is look at optimizing my sleep. And I would do that with either a magnesium biglycinate and threonate and either green or chamomile tea at the end of the night. But that's where I start. Outside of that, I feel like there might be, if you don't have high quality fish, maybe an omega-3 might be in there. If you really don't have any type of vegetable in your diet, and that's, something you're working on, there might be room for a multivitamin. But overall, I think that there is a lot of stuff we can get for our diets, and I like fixing habits and routines first.
It's funny you mentioned the magnesium because I said before I got on, I was talking to the master class, and one of the guys actually said that. He's like, "Oh, I take this, it's great." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And funny enough, that's what came up. That's one of the ones you said that was actually
Oh,
decent.
can I poke a hole in one other supplement that I forgot to mention that always comes up in the
Absolutely.
sleep debate? Melatonin.
Yes.
Everyone knows what it is. Half the people take it. It's in all of these like weird combo. Like you get like there's a whole company called Calm. I think that they have like a sleeping supplement and they put like the worst magnesium that gives you diarrhea in it. Trust me, don't do magnesium oxide, citrate, sulfate. Don't do them. Just trust me. Biglycinate or threonate. Don't do the other ones. But melatonin in specific, we use it because we're like, oh yeah, it helps me sleep. But studies have shown it only increases sleep duration by about 3 to 4 minutes per night. And on top of that, the dose that you take in a capsule of melatonin is what's called a super physiological dose. It is so beyond what our body produces. And get this, melatonin is high in prepubescent kids. Why? It suppresses our sex hormones, estrogen and testosterone. In mice, they have administered what we take as a dose of melatonin, but scaled to a mouse, and it shrunk the testicle size of a mouse from a pea to a grain of rice because it suppressed testosterone. So when we are taking these high doses of a hormone outside of our body that is meant to suppress puberty, we really start to have to ask, is that extra 3 minutes of sleep that you're getting from it worthwhile? And so I am a big no-no on melatonin.
And dudes my age, we want more testosterone. We want it coming through. Like, we don't want anything that takes that down. I want to actually increase that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, how should I increase testosterone? Is that a good thing or not? What should I be doing at my age? Like, say, 40 to 50. I'm right in the middle. Like, if you do the math, I'm 45. So, like,
Yeah.
yeah, like a lot of entrepreneurs getting at this age, like, I don't know, maybe that kind of talks into what is the ideal? Like, you do your one-on-one coaching, you set up your plans. Can you kind of walk me through what that looks like and what an ideal, like, I want you to give me the ideal, this is what I should do. And then realistically, what are some tips to actually keep on task? Because half of it's like, as you know, you start anything and you're like, oh, this is amazing. And then 2 days, 3 days later, then things all start to drop off. Like for me, the only time I ever really had good, consistent success on anything, I did 75 hard. And I know there's a bunch of guys that are listening to this that have done 75 hard. And I know one guy, he does like once a year, which is crazy. But I feel phenomenal, but I feel like it's taking, you're drinking a bunch of water, you're not eating junk, you eliminate the alcohol, which I think is probably a big thing, and you're going to confirm that, I'm guessing. But you're doing all of that at once without just little bits, and I think that all that, all of a sudden, then you get weight loss, and you're feeling good, and you got more energy, and you're starting to shrink a bit. How do we stick to, like, I guess, walk me through the ideal. I know I'm asking a lot. I'm rambling. Walk me through the ideal, and then help me stick to it.
I think what you just identified is 75 hard is a beautiful example. There's a reason it's not called 365 hard. It's because like the idea of that long term is what? It's not sustainable, right? And I always think that there's places for like challenges and sprints, especially if they're exciting or fun or you're doing them with other people. But I think what we struggle with a lot as entrepreneurs is like we look at health as like this demanding task that like, oh God, where am I going to fit that in? Like you want me to, if you've even listened to this episode and you're like, the first couple hacks I gave you, you were like, cool, I'm going to try that. And by now you're like, oh my God, that's a lot.
Lady,
Like,
lady, I'm not planning my stuff. I'm still grabbing the burrito down in the street at lunchtime, right?
right? Yeah. And like, and keep in mind, like, I'm just sharing the fun, cool stuff to show you what's possible. If you started on day one with me, that would not be your routine, right? I like to show this stuff because I like to bring back that excitement and that inspiration of like how freaking cool science is and how cool our body is and what is possible and the things you can play with. But that's not where you start. And this is where I feel entrepreneurs get stuck in I think of it as like the perfectionist fantasy cycle. You sit down, and here's a good example. January 1st this year, a Monday. Like, woo. Some people are getting excited. It's a fresh month, it's a fresh year, and it's a fresh week all on the same day. And they're like sitting there, they're like, yes, we're not eating flour ever again. We're also going to do 6 workouts a week and we're going to drink all the way. Like, my life is changed. I'm done with feeling like this. Let's go. Right? Big, sexy, exciting plan. Maybe they get 3 or 4 weeks and then my gosh, something goes wrong with your Amazon storage, or you get banned, or you get a product that gets removed, or something crazy comes up and you need to go into fix it mode, or your kid gets sick, or you get sick, and you don't do any of these habits because they're they're not sustainable in the first place. And so we feel terrible about ourselves because we don't do it. We beat ourselves up. What's wrong with me? I'm always like this. I'm never going to change. This is exhausting. I wonder if there's something, what did I do wrong? And we develop these like really insidious thoughts of I am, like beliefs about ourselves, like I'm no good. There's something wrong with me. This is, I'm never going to be able to do this. I've always been like this. And this is the foundation for when we stop seeing success. But the first couple times that happens, you know what we do? We're like, okay, this feels terrible. You know what would feel good? A new plan. And so we sit there, we're like, okay, Mondays, 8 a.m. I'm going to do this workout. And we do this again. And the dopamine hit off of a new plan. Oh, so good that it makes us completely forget how terrible we felt like 20 minutes ago. Right? And we're like, this feels amazing. All right, 3 weeks in, same thing happens. And like, we never really are like, what's not working about it? What's not working about it is it was never sustainable in the first place. Right? And you'll hear people say all the time, like, I'm too busy to work out right now. I don't have time for that. I've got too much going on. No, this is when you figure it out. If you can figure it out when you're busy, then you know the next time you get busy is doable, right? You want it to be really easy during the easy times. So the mindset shift that I love to offer is what I call the experimenter's mindset. And the experimenter's mindset is, okay, I've been going to bed at 11 and I like to wake up at 5 and it's not giving me enough sleep. So for the next week, I'm going to commit to going to bed at 10:30 and I am going to then do that all week. And at the end of the week, if I like that, I keep it. If I want to change it, I change it. And if I don't, I don't. But I'm not going to make the decision without having had the experience of a 10:30 bedtime and the experience of bedtimes all over the place. Like I like to contrast those and think of like, okay, that's an experiment. If I like that, then I layer in one more habit. And what we have to do is we have to get out of this mindset that there is better than here. When I have my health in check, when I'm this weight, when I'm waking up in the morning with energy, when I've got my exercise plan in place, we tell ourselves, I will feel different. But that's not actually accurate. Because if your brain can't generate happiness or fulfillment or whatever it is now, you're sure as hell not going to do it when you get there. You're going to be so disappointed. You're going to go back into quitting all over again. So the challenge I like to make is we need to check ourselves on the rush that we get in. And we need to remind ourselves that like, hey, if you can do 1 workout a week for a year, it's way better than doing 5 workouts for the next month and doing a year, right? You're going to be further ahead. And so we're going to layer in one thing at a time with the idea that if we don't like it, we can take it away again. It's an experiment. We're going to keep doing this. We're layering in habits as we go and understanding that anything that we think we're going to feel as a result is always an internal job. So our job is to create that fulfillment, that freedom, whatever we're after now. So not only is the process a hell of a lot more fun, when you get there, you know that your brain has changed and you're able to actually feel the way you want to feel. Because if you can't feel it now, you're not going to magically start feeling it then. It's going to be fast. So that's kind of where I really like to look at the brain, and the mindset is equally, the coaching part is as much important as the consulting side.
So you sit down with someone, take them on as a client, you start to figure out what the current stuff is, and then you're changing like one thing at a time and figuring out what works. So what do? Like somebody signs up for you for like 3 months and you sit down and meet like once a week and look at my ring data and come up with how did you feel this week and what else do we need to change, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I mean, it's different. There's different levels of support. Some people just like having the voice note access to me all week long because it's more efficient. Some people like the weekly calls, but either way, it's a very similar process. So there's an intake form at the beginning. Sit down, like, hey, okay, where's the domino at the front? What one thing if we change would make everything else easier? Like, for example, if we were well rested, would that make eating well better? Would that make hitting your exercise better? You figure out that front domino. Then we put one habit into place for that every week. And so every week, it's just a matter of asking ourselves, like, okay, what worked? What didn't work? What are we doing differently? And we start making tweaks on just those things. So over that 4 months and beyond, what you end up developing is a protocol that was sustainably developed and altered in the process. It wasn't like bulldozing through a 75-day challenge. And at the end, you're just like, thank God that's done. It's like if you were adding in things that you could easily see yourself committing and staying committed to for 5 years, for 10 years, for 20 years, and building in a sustainable health protocol that feels like it fits in with your schedule. And the way I love to do that, like I said, I send all my client Aura rings. And the reason for that is I need to see what's going on because data is objective. Data has no feelings. Data doesn't care about how many episodes you needed to watch of your TV show. It's a fact. You either went to bed at this time or this time. So you get to see the data. And I feel like it's a really beautiful way to pair the accountability of having someone watching you go through this process and helping you and guiding you, and also just seeing your data improve. Like I had a client that I've been working with for a little while now, and he was getting in like the 40 minutes of deep sleep per night, feeling exhausted all the time. We have a system. Well, the first thing we tested was coffee. We tested timing, we tested volume, we tested with food, we tested without food. Okay, wasn't it? Moved on. Then we tested exercise. And one of the things we noticed is that there's a certain amount of exercise and intensity that his deep sleep started getting to an hour 10 every night. And so now we know we don't need to waste time on the coffee hack anymore. We're just over here being like, hey, do you want to feel rested in the morning? It looks, after a whole 3 or 4 weeks of experiment, very tied to your exercise. So you hit this, you're going to be waking up a lot better, right? And that's how I can tell what works. It's not just like, well, you need to sleep this much and get this much deep sleep and this much exercise. It's how we personalize it, right? We're able to be like, hey, that was a direct reflection in the data and you feel better. So let's spend our time on this and not everything else. Because we want to be able, by the time we're done, to be able to like, here are the core habits that when shit hits the fan in your business, these are the ones you hang on to. These are the less important ones. And don't even focus your time on this one. They had no effect.
It seems so simple. You just make it sound so easy. You just use
Simple,
data.
not easy, because you're battling a lot of your brain the whole time, being like, but I've always found this hard. Nothing works for me. You don't know my schedule. They're all just stories we have, right? So I think that's why the coaching is so important in it, because we all know what to do. Really, we do. We know that we should be sleeping. We know we should be exercising. How much might be up for debate, but we know those things. The reason we don't do them is because our brain is in there just telling us like, no, 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 you want to be watching more TV now. No, 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 hit the snooze. And you have to learn the skills to challenge those thinkings and to start rewriting that. And that's why it's consulting and coaching kind of married together.
I like it. I like the fact though, you're just saying start with the data and then change like one thing or experiment with one thing at a time. Because if you're like anything, if you're experimenting with too many variables, well, you don't know which one worked. So just try one thing and then stop spinning your wheels. Okay, that one didn't work. You've got enough, you got a week or two, nothing changed. Okay, let's not worry about that one. Let's try the next thing, right?
Yeah.
It's
Bang on.
I know. Yeah, it's real
Beautifully
easy, right?
simple
Real simple.
system. It's a beautifully simple system. Not easy, simple, right? And that's what we want, because if you can be willing to raise the level of discomfort of which you are accustomed to, because often our lives are a result of the amount of discomfort we're willing to tolerate. If you can proactively tolerate a little bit more discomfort, you can raise the standards for yourself. It's simple. Going to bed 15 minutes earlier is simple. That's the nice thing. It's clear. Now what we have to do is just work on the conversation.
Yeah, and actually do it and hold yourself accountable. Even I like that
Sure.
thing if you're like, hey, I measure all my data and then Sunday is kind of the reset day and see what worked and then that retunes for Monday, but still don't do that 2 hours before bedtime when your brain is overactive. Do that, before you eat, right? Okay, I want to switch gears a bit because there's another whole thing I want to talk about that to me is pretty relevant. I want to talk about your mini vacation, longer term. You're going to Panama. You're engineered a very different lifestyle. Can you just tell us a bit about that? Because again, I'm bummed you're going to Panama. I would have liked to see you come to Costa Rica. So hopefully
It's happening,
you'll be
Rob.
here.
Just wait.
Okay. So give us a little bit of background on what you're doing.
Yeah. So I guess it started in 2020. We've had a lot of good luck in the sense that we had no idea what we're doing at the right time. So 2020, we were like, well, we bought a rental property. Let's go and let's go figure out how stocks work. Like, we got really lucky. 2020 was a great time to get started in investing if you started anytime after March, because the market crashed, right? And so we had started poking around in there, fearfully like throwing $300 in there, watching it literally all day go up 10 cents, down 10 cents, up a dollar, down a dollar, thinking like, oh my gosh, this is so scary. And we started learning and we got a little more comfortable. And about a year later, we had a video just like serendipitously pop up on our YouTube feed. And it was some guy was talking about his portfolio and how he lives off his dividend income. And I'm clicking through and I was like, oh my gosh. He invests in a way that's not for growth. Most of us think, we buy a stock at $10, we want to get it to $13. But this is more about the capital maintains, but you get distributions like dividend payments out and you take that and you cover your lifestyle. And we're like, okay, let's play with this. So we played with it. We were playing with honestly only about like $80,000 at the time. And we saw it was kicking out. We're like, okay, first we covered off our internet bill and then we covered off our strata payment on our homeowner association payment. One thing at a time, we're like, this is cool. And then we're like, we have a good idea. Sell our house and invest that. Use that money to not have to work anymore. And it was a wild idea. My parents thought we were insane. But I mean, numbers are numbers. Spreadsheets don't lie. It's not emotional. The numbers work or they don't. So we sold our house in 2021. We put it in. And we started getting out probably about $4,500 a month in dividend payments. And at that time, we're like, this is pretty cool. And so we're like, let's sell our rental property. So we sold the rental property, invested it in. Fast forward to today, we just crossed $6,300 a month. Now, our living expenses are not that per month. So the nice thing is like, it has made everything that I do with my business for fun and optional in a way that like I get to say yes to clients I want to work with, yes to speaking engagements I want to work with. I get to do stuff that is fun and I lost that pressure to like have to do stuff, which was beautiful. And so then we got this like great idea last year. We're like, well, hey, why don't we get Flynn, that's my husband, just quit his job. So in 2022, June 1st, our second daughter was born. He quit his job. So now he's at home. And this is when I really got to run with my business and have fun and take off and try some new stuff. But moral of the story today. So we have decided now, like, well, do we want to be in rainy Vancouver all year? And so this is leading into, we've made the decision that, well, why don't we go for 2 months and just take our life and relocate it to Panama? We're just going to work. We're going to live. We're going to get feet in the sand. So we have Airbnbs rented throughout January, February, and into March. They're water view. They're on the beach. We are going to we have decided that we want to raise our kids around other cultures. Like Vancouver is a wonderfully cultural place, but I want them to see what it's like to grow up around different languages, different celebrations, different holidays, different types of just all the different things that you get with not living in the same place your whole life. And I thought that was such a cool gift that we could give our kids, especially being so young. They're 1 and almost 4. And so we're going to be spending that time. And now what is my business income? Because like we want to use that for fun. So that's funding all of our travel. And we're hoping to travel 4 to 6 months a year while still we're in a rental house back in Vancouver, keeping our rental house and being able to kind of just come and go as we please. It's a location freedom that we've created over the last couple of years.
Preaching to the choir.
Right?
Hey, I love being down at the beach. I love, obviously we made this choice but I'm not as free spirited as you, let's say, and I want to travel all around. I've settled down. Like we've got roots here. We're good. But it's phenomenal. It's totally different. I mean, you're engineering a lifestyle that allows you to do whatever you want, to go and travel and be around and show the kids, other experiences. I will say though, I'm finding now my kids now are 11 and 9, and when I show them, it's different. It's different growing up. I mean, I was talking to a friend the other day when we grew up. She's like, "Yeah, I moved out of the house, and Mom gave me 30 Polaroids." She's like, "Yeah, here's your life, right?" Now we've got here's 450 gig of photos and videos of your last 4 years of life. One thing I noticed talking about my kids, whenever we talked about, do you remember this, do you remember that, they don't seem to really have a lot of memories until they're like 6. So some of those great things that we were doing before, I'm like, do you remember that? They're like, no. I show them a video, they're like, no, still not. Sometimes one thing I will say is, don't try to force this big grandiose, this will be amazing, you'll remember it the rest of your life. Like, you're 2, you don't even remember what you ate for breakfast yesterday.
Oh, this is
right?
for us. Let's be
This is
real.
for everybody. Yeah, absolutely. You're like,
Yeah.
yes, we're going to show you all this great things. But it's funny then as they start to pick up little things. And when they have those memories, it's really neat.
Oh, I bet.
Now my kids are talking about pronouncing things incorrectly. Costa Rica versus Costa Rica. And Chase is like, oh, we say it that way because we're Canadian and our Canadian accents. And I'm like, Chase, you've lived here longer than you lived in Canada. So let's not say it's your accent. I know you're still holding on to that, but it's funny how they evolve. But I think it's
Yeah.
wicked what you guys have done. I mean, just say, look, fine, I don't need to be tied into this massive big because everybody wants to
Yeah.
chase that real estate ladder, right? I mean, we all love our HGTV, hey, look at the home renos, let's keep moving up the property ladder, get bigger houses. And you just said, no, we don't need that. Instead, just take that nice pool of equity you have and live off it and go on adventures.
Right? Yeah, and it's so interesting about maybe even 3 months before we had the idea to sell. If you'd have asked me if I'd have ever sold this townhouse, because keep in mind, this was a townhouse in Vancouver that I bought on my own at 25, which was like a big deal. And I was going to rent that out to the day I died. I was on council to make sure that the building was protected so that, I had this great asset. And I would have never thought that. But like, for me, I was like, what's more important? Is it the security of a house that I can paint the walls and I can change the cupboards? Or is it my husband home from work to watch our kids grow up? Because he had a full-time job. We used to call him during breakfast and he'd be at work and he'd wave through the phone. And now, it's a Tuesday morning, it's 10 a.m. and we're all hanging out. We went ice skating this week, 10 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. Like those type of things to me became more valuable than a house. And I think it was probably February this year, we had a really interesting conversation. I'd listened to a podcast episode and it was this concept of when is enough enough. And it was the guy had said, his name was Rob Murgatroyd. He said, enough is enough when it erodes the bandwidth for a great quality life. And in that moment, I was like, I'm curious. We wrote down everything we'd ever want. And I'm talking like when you just like think of stupid stuff, like I want someone to come in my house and cook all my meals. I want personal training sessions in my house. When you get to that kind of level, and I want to travel for 4 months a year, and I want this and I want this. And we recognized that lifestyle for us only costs, like if we were like gross top end business would only need to make 250. By the time you took out taxes and paid for expenses and it trickled down to us, it only ended up being like 140 take home. And I was like, that's it. I mean, for everything I could think, I can't even write down more stuff that I want. Wait a second. Why am I giving up having my husband home? Or why are we giving up, time with our kids? Or why are we giving up all this to chase money that like beyond is just surplus? And it was so fast. It was a really good moment of like, that's enough. Anything beyond that, I'll go for, but not at the expense of the lifestyle that I want because it doesn't create anything else up to that point. So it was a cool mindset shift that we had this year.
And that's funny. I see that with Amazon sellers and e-commerce sellers because you can continue to grow your business, especially like a little different. It's cash flow because you're spending so much on inventory and you've got to do it and get to the point where you just keep rolling that over and rolling and rolling. And you're like, I want to keep growing. I want to keep growing. And you're like, does this incrementally change your life? Another 100 grand, 200 grand in top line sales or 500,000. How much more profit are you going to take home? Meanwhile, what's it going to take? And you still got to finance it and your cash flow poor. Sometimes you just got to pause and be like, okay, this is good where we are right now. Let's enjoy some of it, not just the airline miles, but let's, enjoy a life and not burn ourselves out, right?
Yeah, right. It's kind of that idea of like, what is the life that like, it goes back to that when then thing we just talked about earlier. It's like, but when I get to this level of revenue, then I will have freedom. And that's like this, like, keep in mind, I do what I love for work. I have time freedom. I have location freedom. I have financial freedom. And all this time I thought, well, hell, this should do the job, right? Like this should make me like Zen master. And over here I am still freaking out about not enough money coming in. And I really realized this last couple like months, I'm like, damn, this is an internal job. There is no when I get there, then I'll feel this. And that's, I think, where we get caught is like 100 grand, top line. Let's just keep add this because then it'll be better. Then I'll be able to do this. And all this time, I'm like, okay, so the whole time it was my job to feel better. Like, if I'm not going to choose to change how I feel on the inside with what I think about all the time and like where I set my expectations, I'm going to chase into infinite and never really enjoy my life. But this makes sure, hell, I can grow. I'm still planning on making more money, but I also know that I've got my boundaries in place and I'm going to enjoy it on the way there.
This has been Fantastic. I grilled you. See, I knew I was excited about this because you just take it and go. And you're like, you know what? This is my first rodeo, Rob. I'll tell you exactly what some good strategies. Any final strategies or suggestions that you have for anybody listening, for me, for just that we should think about and easy changes, quick wins?
Don't think about it like this. Just think about how you're feeling right now. Whether you're probably got your to-do list in the back of your head, maybe you're listening to this while you're driving the kids, wherever it is. You've got this feeling in right now. And I just want you to imagine, like, if we could take your brain, or you could take your brain through making some of these changes, just maybe you're operating at about 60% right now. If you could just get up 5%, 10%, if you could get your brain feeling more clear and more energized, what would be different in your life? How would you feel? How would you interact with your family? How would you show up to your business? And I always like to ask that, like, what is possible if you are to make some of these changes instead of telling yourself, I'll do it later? But what is possible for your life when you decide to start taking care of your brain? It's the best asset you have in your business, more than all the product that you have stored in all the warehouses. It's your brain. And if we're not taking care of it, we don't really have a business. If your brain goes downhill, if you get dementia, if you are so foggy or so ill you can't get out of bed, or you develop a long-term disease, what's the point in the business? Really, what is the point? And I always like to think, like, I want to enjoy my life. Here I am. I'm going to show up because I'm taking care of this asset, because it is what is going to create the life I want.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. I gotta go write that down. I gotta transcribe that. That's really good though. No, that's awesome. Where can people find you? Give us your links.
Yeah. So if you're like, okay, I heard all the hacks today and that was a lot and I can't remember them all. I have put the 12, what I feel are 12 really effective hacks into a playbook. I call it my entrepreneur's playbook, 12 ways to biohack your energy. It's for having those productive mornings and feeling really focused and energized. And that's on my website at TanessaShears.com. There's a freebies tab on the top. You can click through. It's a free download. And the cool thing is every single hack that's in there is going to be linked to an episode of my podcast. My podcast is Becoming Limitless. Everyone takes one hack and it tells you how it affects your business, what it is, and how to apply it. There's no gatekeeping. I'm not saving the best stuff. You're going to be getting exactly how to do it, because I want you to have the tools you need, right? And then if you need help with the implementation, that's when you reach out to me. So my podcast, Becoming Limitless, and otherwise that, I'm pretty active on Instagram. I'm over at Tanessa Shears. Feel free to drop a DM, say hi, ask questions. I am always, I'm pretty chatty on there, so come say hi.
That's what I said when I asked the masterclass in our WhatsApp chat, but we have a private chat, and I said, hey, I showed your bio, and I said, I'm talking to her. And one guy had this really complicated sleep thing. And he was asking all these questions. I said, you know what? I'm not going to ask that because that's pretty specific. Hit her up on the DM. She's really good, because I know my wife slides into your DMs and she's asking you questions. So I said, no, just hit her up, message her there. You're super responsive. And as you said, not a gatekeeper, just, hey, chat away. So Tanessa, this has been fantastic. By the way, I do have your download. It is solid. It is really good. Like all your stuff. You always blow me away by it. It's so good. And I love whenever we talk or we trade an email, we talk about some accounting or we talk about business. The business goes deep and you're like, oh, here's a new software I'm using. And I'm like, I'm using that too. And
Yeah.
it's always great to catch up. So thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been fantastic. I'll put all your links below. So if anybody didn't write it down and doesn't remember the hacks, they can reach out and check it all there. Thanks so much.
Thanks.